Welcome to the Backpack Show, everybody. You might have noticed that we are one Chris Brogan short. That is because he is away on business. What a nerve, but I am not worried. We have an amazing show. We have Kevin Hancock, who has been featured in the New York Times and is the author of 48 Whispers, which we're going to talk about. He's also the CEO of Hancock Lumber, which is one of the oldest family-owned businesses in the country. So we're going to talk about how Kevin brought the lumber company through the 2007 housing market crash and his own personal journey with a rare voice disorder. So we're going to talk about that too. Lots and lots to talk about and learn from. Chris's parents are here. Hello. I love them. They're the best. All right, let's do this thing.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gargone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
I feel like Chris is going to watch me from the car and his eyes are going to be boring into the back of my head. So, Kevin, can you tell me what it's like to basically be born into this really long history, legacy? Did you always want to go into lumber, or did you really want to be like a dentist? And how'd this unfold for you?
Yeah, certainly unique. Our company goes back to the 1840s, prior to the first cannonball being fired in the Civil War. And I'm part of the sixth generation of my family to work for our company. But what's funny, Carrie, is growing up, it never occurred to me that I might work there. I didn't think about it in high school. I didn't think about it in college. When I graduated from college, I wanted to be a basketball coach, college basketball coach. And I was teaching and doing some other things. And then my dad got cancer at a young age. And really, without a lot of planning, I found myself at the company. And that was 30 years ago. And here I am.
So it really wasn't something you expected to be doing. Did you learn quickly, or had you just learned a lot more than you realized just by watching?
Both. I had a really good sense of the culture from growing up with my family and around the business. And I worked there, summer jobs, all the worst jobs in the company I did as a kid growing up. So some of it I had a strong connection to, but really after that, I just learned on the job. I kept making mistakes and surviving them is how I would describe it, and learning from them.
The worst jobs at the lumber company. I need to know what the worst jobs at the lumber company were, Kevin.
Well, I don't want to say worse, but these are things like just constantly sweeping out the warehouse and picking up trash and things like that. All really important jobs. I was just trying to make the point that I kind of started right at the beginning.
Oh no, I got it. I just wanted to
fix.
fix. So I worked at a bakery as my first job, and I considered the worst job, if you want to call it that. They rolled out this stack of bread pans. I don't know if you've ever seen like bakery bread pans, but they've got them like 5 things across, and they're bracketed together, and they were stacked like 20 high. And they said, "Okay, you're going to grease the bread pans." And I'm like, "Ha ha ha." Like, there's no way. I thought they were pranking me. They meant it. So, you know what? I got pretty good at it. Those corners, they were tricky. Tell me about when you got to the point in your career as CEO of Hancock Lumber when the housing market crashed.
Yeah, so that began around 2007, and as you can imagine, it was a super stressful and difficult time for anybody connected to the housing industry, which we are right in the middle of. Anyway, in 2010, towards the peak of that crash, I began to have trouble speaking. Long story short, Carrie, and I hadn't put the two together, but it really was a stress-related illness from my perspective. It turned out I'd acquired a rare neurological speech disorder called spasmodic dysphonia that perhaps affects 20,000 people in North America. with no known cause and no known cure. So suddenly there I was trying to figure out how I was going to help lead the company through this really difficult time without actually being able to use my voice, which I always take it for granted. And as a leader, when you think about it, what's your tool? If you're the CEO of a company, it's really your voice. And suddenly I couldn't actually use it.
So what was the first kind of reaction you had? Did you think, I can't do this anymore? Or did you immediately start looking for ways to keep doing what you needed to do?
Yeah, I just dug in, it kind of fought through, but it really got quite simple. When it's hard to talk, you develop strategies for doing less of it. And mine was simply to answer a question with a question, thereby putting the conversation back on the other person, which is actually where the leadership reinvention and learning began. So someone would come up to me at work because I was the quote unquote boss or the CEO with a question or a problem, and I started responding this way. I would say, that's a good question. What do you think we should do about it?
And pretty soon they're like, well, I'm not going to his office anymore. So they're going to tell me anything to do myself.
So what struck me, having asked that question eventually hundreds of times, was this, Carrie. People already knew what to do. They didn't actually need someone from the chain of command to tell them what to do. They already knew. What did they really need? They really just needed the encouragement and the confidence and the safety of the culture to trust their own voice, to make their own decisions, and to take their own action. And that, when I saw that, it got me thinking very differently about leadership and my role as a CEO.
Well, Elizabeth says the worst job she ever had was cleaning bathrooms, and she didn't last a day. My worst job, actually, Elizabeth, if we're going to be honest, I loved the bakery. I stayed there from when I was 13. I had work permit till I was 23, I want to say. My worst job was probably working at a restaurant that a husband had given to his wife as a birthday present. Like, oh, honey, another one, right? These are the kinds of people I was working for. And they were two managers, one for ice cream and one for food, and they didn't get along. And the guy for food would just walk around all day going, okay, all right, here we go. Okay, all right, here we go. All day long. That was what he did. And the other one, the ice cream manager, she would yell at us. And so I think I lasted 2 weeks, and then I just gave that up and stuck with the bakery, which I was doing both. So anyway.
I want to jump in solidarity with Elizabeth. One summer at college, I worked in Yellowstone National Park at a hotel on Yellowstone Lake, and my job was to clean hotel rooms. And I know my mom, who had seen my messy room as a teenager, still has trouble believing this, but within a couple of weeks, I actually got promoted from room cleaner to essentially supervisor. And my mom never quite believed that could have been possible because she'd seen my room at home.
Oh no. My mom would clean my room, but only so she could like snoop and look for my diary and stuff. I'm pretty sure that was the motivation. So one of the things that you said that really intrigued me is that you sort of pushed back onto the people who came to you for advice or guidance, push that responsibility back onto them. Do you think that that's part of what helped you get through the housing crisis, get the lumber company through that, is making people innovate and giving them the freedom to fail a little, like if their ideas maybe didn't work right first time out?
Yeah, in time, it completely transformed our company. We have since flipped that traditional leadership model of power to the center. And I ended up looking really for the meaning within my voice condition. And I said, well, maybe the limitations of my own voice, maybe it's actually a gift and a blessing and an invitation to strengthen the voices of others, to give other people a stronger voice. And that's when I really kind of developed this philosophy of let's disperse power instead of collect it. Let's create a work culture where everybody leads, and let's make it safe for everyone to speak with their own authentic voice. Now, it took a few years to really reorient our culture in that direction, but once we did, our performance began to soar. And more importantly to me, the employee experience just got a whole lot better. It was really like the improved performance of the company was really the outcome of a higher calling, which was aspiring to give everyone in our company a bigger, more powerful voice and a safe platform to just be your authentic self.
I imagine that that's something, especially right now, like post-pandemic, a lot of people are hungry for. I think that's fed into what they're calling the great resignation or the great rehiring, like some people are saying, is people want to be their authentic selves. Chloe in Scotland observes that in some ways, this became a great asset in developing leadership and empowering your team. Like very few people, I think, would take that experience you're having with your voice and call it a gift, but that's what you turned it into, and it ended up translating into more success for your business. I mean, that's
Correct.
amazing.
Yeah, and really simply put, the more I quieted down my own voice, creating more space for others to have a bigger voice, the better we did. And ironically, the more powerful my voice got, if you follow, in other words, I was actually having a bigger influence with a lesser voice.
So talking less but influencing more. Wow.
Yeah, and really trusting humanity at the end of the day. You know, our company had 600 people who work there. And the way I see it today, they all know more about their area of responsibility within the organization than I do because they live it every day. And I really have come to love the idea of shared leadership and really trusting that everybody is capable of leading and is capable of helping the company improve and grow and progress.
I want to talk more about what you said about elevating other people's voices because you've started a whole nonprofit along those lines. You have a book, but first I have to thank just a couple of sponsors. So if you want to have your own voice podcast, an audio podcast, elevate your voice, castos.com can host your podcast files and syndicate it to all the places. We work with Matt Medeiros there, and he's fantastic. It's super easy. Chris doesn't do anything that isn't really easy to do. So, it works really well. And if you would like a .online domain, you can get yourself one for just 99 cents. You just have to use the code Chris, all caps. I don't know why it's all caps. It bugs me to this day. But use the code Chris in all caps and you could get your .online domain at cbrogan.me/online for just 99 cents. We're also sponsored by StreamYard. So if you want to have a show just like this, go and find your own lumber CEO who's been on a personal journey of discovery and leadership. And you could have your own video show, cbrogan.me/StreamYard. And finally, Presearch. If you don't want to use the G word, Presearch is an excellent search engine. Stick it to the man. They give you crypto rewards if you're logged in just for using the search, and you can stake keywords. So you don't even have to spend coin to, you don't buy placements or anything. You can stake just by holding coin. So if I had search for, keynote speaker and I wanted it to come up to Carrie.show, I could do that in Presearch. So check that out. Okay, so the book. This is the culmination of a very long journey for you to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. Was it 20, something like 20 times you went there? What brought you there in the first place?
Yeah. So in 2012, the economy had stabilized, and I had this growing feeling that I needed to focus on myself a little bit more. And honestly, I tried to resist that, which is not a healthy thing to do, but ultimately, I gave into it. That summer, I picked up a copy of National Geographic, and the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation was on the cover. I've always had a love affair with the American West. I live in Maine, way up in the northeast corner of New England, but I've always loved the American West, and particularly fascinated with American history during the second half of the 19th century, when our nation's manifest destiny ran into the Plains Indians. Anyway, I read that article and was just really captured by the story of the people and the place, and decided to go there. I said to my wife, I'm going to go to see what life is like for the people who live there. So I took a trip that fall. One trip became two became three. I've now been there over 24 times. Pine Ridge is located in the southwest corner of South Dakota, and it's the biggest, most historic, most traditionally disenfranchised, and today poorest of all the Sioux reservations on the northern plains. But the people there have this amazing resilience, spirit, connectivity to nature, story to tell. But in summary, here's really the connection. At Pine Ridge, I met an entire community that felt as if a piece of their voice, for very different reasons, had been taken or stolen. So I was kind of going there, trying to regain my own balance, search for my own voice. And I wound up in a community that felt as if its voice had been taken from them.
And you didn't just observe that and kind of, ruminate on it individually. You started a nonprofit as well, the Seventh Power.
I did. Correct. And the big thing really, though, is I just kept going back. I kept going back. People would ask me, well, what do you do when you're there? And Carrie, I used to struggle with this answer, but finally I just started telling the truth. I don't actually do anything when I'm there. All I do is hang out with the people who live there. And I have really come to believe that awareness and connectivity in and of itself is an incredibly powerful act. I see you. I know you're here. I'm interested in you. And I know that you and your community are important. That in and of itself is powerful. So I do have this nonprofit, and we've worked on housing issues and so forth. But I would really say in the end, just the awareness, the connectivity, and the engagement has been the most powerful part.
How'd you get the book done? Like, how does this actually happen? And there's gorgeous photos in it. There's kind of, I don't want to call them ruminations. They're almost like meditations or inspiration, heavy on the inspiration, but just look at that. So how long did this take, and what was the process like for getting 48 Whispers together?
Yeah, so originally when I started going there, I had no plan or thought to produce a book. I was simply carrying with me a little pocket camera and a journal. And I was always so enchanted when I was there that I couldn't stop taking pictures and I couldn't stop writing. I literally could not stop myself. And over the years, I took hundreds of pictures and wrote hundreds of meditations or missives, if you will. And then eventually I started showing people some of the pictures, and they were like, wow, those are pretty powerful. And showing them a few of the writings, and they were like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And then it occurred to me that maybe this was something I would try to bundle up and share. It was all a bit of a, if you will, a bit of a modern day vision quest where I was really at midlife kind of searching to regain and reconnect with my own true voice in a community that had a spiritual history of understanding how to do that.
Most people just go out and buy a nice car. So, I mean, you're taking it to a whole new level.
Some people have said I have the best midlife crisis they ever heard of, Carrie.
So all this time away from the lumber company, from Hancock Lumber, and spent at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, did it make you a better leader? How did it change your approach to leadership back home?
Yeah, great question. So it wasn't a ton of time away. I'd go 2 or 3 times a year for 5 or 6 days at a time. But when I first started going, and this is such a critical point in the book, I really felt self-conscious about it because I was so stuck in my roles. What is the CEO of a lumber company from Maine doing hanging out on a remote Indian reservation in the Dakotas? How do you explain that? And finally, I decided that I didn't really need to, that this was just a passion of mine and I loved it there. And I wasn't going to become a better CEO. I was going because it was really speaking to me. But what I've come to believe, and this book really tries to speak to, is when we free ourselves to follow our inner voice and do the things that make us light up, even when they might seem odd or crazy even to others, when we follow that voice, that's when we make ourselves the most powerful. And that's when we end up giving the most back to others in return. So this travel to kind of get myself recentered in this community, long story short, was making me much better at my job. And that makes sense when you think about it. Anything that makes us healthier, wholer, stronger within filters through into all the roles we then end up playing in our lives. And so really the book is about encouraging people to follow that voice that resides in the heart.
It is a beautiful looking book. I'm going to put it back on my bookshelf when we're done. I keep some of my previous interviews books there. I don't know if you saw, but my boss snuck in. So, give me something really sensational that you've never told anybody else before.
There's too much pressure in that. I've already told you quite a bit here that's coming right from the soul.
So what's next? What do you see coming next? Is it another book? Is it more visits back? Is it doing something more with the nonprofit, growing your business in a different direction? Like, what comes next for you?
Yeah, so now I'm going to stay connected to Pine Ridge for life. I know I'm going to keep going back. What comes out of that, I don't know, but that's what I've become quite comfortable with. The previous me was constantly trying to plan and script and lay out the future, which is impossible. The kind of new me is really comfortable recognizing the future's not knowable and just move it forward in directions that speak to me without trying to script what those outcomes are going to look like. So I don't know what comes next, and that's the cool part now to me.
The one and only Chris Brogan, New York Times best-selling author of 9 books and counting, would like to know, what if we question our voice often? So many people seem to be enemies with trusting themselves.
Well, it's really got me. I agree with that. And I've thought a lot about why. And I think over time, it has a bit to do with leadership. I think throughout history, leaders in total have probably done more to limit, restrict, direct, coach, intimidate, or control the voices of others than to free them. You know, the whole, and this is everywhere, the reciting things religiously, towing the company line. You know, that's all dogma that people have been trained to follow. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is a perfect example. Their ancestors were sent there in the second half of the 19th century to be remade as white people. That was not the hidden objective. That was the overt public objective. The whole point was to take their voice away and turn them into something that they weren't. And what just an incredibly gut-wrenching, heart-draining, what could be worse, really? And so this all of this epiphany has really let me see and be inspired by the idea that in the 21st century, the Aquarian age, new, fresh, modern leadership is about welcoming people into their authentic voice and meeting them exactly where they are. The idea is simple and it's so much easier. You're amazing and perfect right exactly where you are. And no change on my account is required on your behalf. I just want you to be you. And I've really gotten inspired about trying to bring that culture into the world of work, the world of business, and in our case, a lumber company in Maine.
I think if you came later and missed the beginning, check it out, because not only is this something that changed the way your company operates, but it improved results, business results. So all the innovation and people being allowed to or empowered to speak up resulted in greater business success, which I think is kind of the crux of the matter. Because a lot of businesses are like, let's keep everybody buttoned down in the interest of business as usual and productivity. You're saying the opposite, that actually when you free people.
That's such an important point, Carrie. So glad you brought that up. We've been at this for a decade within our company. And what we've seen is that when you give everybody the safety and the respect of an authentic voice, that discipline, commitment to systems, best practices, core processes actually improves, it tightens. And our safety director, to me, best summed it up once when he explained why by saying this: people are much more apt to support that which they help to create. It's really just that simple. And when everyone had a voice in what we were going to do, everyone's willingness to support what we decided to do just got so much stronger. And our corporate performance went through the roof. But the key to me here is to put it in perspective. That's the outcome, one outcome of a higher calling. None of what I'm talking about is to improve corporate performance. It will improve corporate performance but that's an outcome. What I'm talking about is focusing on advancing humanity. And how do you do that when you think about it? You have to do it one person at a time. And where are we going to do it? Well, we've got to do it where adults hang out. And where do adults hang out? Well, a lot of them hang out at work. So let's
Hi, boss.
Right. So let's do it there. And it's got the added benefit of improving corporate performance, but as the subset of taking on a higher calling, seeing the higher purpose and potential of the workplace.
Chris Brogan would like to know if you have any hints on gently guiding leadership from the employee's chair to adopt this kind of thing. So if you're an employee at a place and you'd really like to see them move more toward a shared leadership model, is there a way to do it?
So that's such a great question. I've been lucky because I was the CEO of family business. So I had every opportunity to do this, to really work on it. And what about people who aspire to that type of culture, but maybe don't have the leadership control to trigger it? I think in this day and age, a couple things. One, you don't know what change you can create until you lean in and try. And second, honestly, in this day and age, I really love the mobility that we have as humans to choose our jobs. And at some point, sometimes we have to stay where we are, but ultimately, let's not hang out any longer than we have to in organizations that don't have healthy humanity advancing cultures. Let's just not hang out in those places.
We've come to that point in the show where I ask you a very, very important question. First, I have to pick our person of the day. So, I mean, I'm sort of forced to do this because usually Chris does it. And when he does it, he comes up with like, I never know who he's going to pick.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
At the risk of being predictable, I'd love to make him person of the day when he isn't here. So, Chris Brogan, you're our person of the day. That entitles you to a free apple. You just have to go purchase it, wash it really good, and then cut it up and bake a tartlet or something like that. That's what I would recommend. But the question we ask everyone, Kevin, is the backpack question. What goes in your backpack for success? It could be something physical. It could be something metaphorical. So are we talking, it could be beef jerky. You like to get beef jerky in your backpack. Yeah. Or it could be, hope for the future. So what goes in your backpack for success, Kevin?
I love that question. I'm going to put in there first, self-awareness. Really looking inward, the ability to look inward for direction, meaning, and purpose.
And anything physical you'd like to toss in as well? I'll give you two. I'm feeling generous because I'm here by myself. So,
well, no, I think I'm going to stick with what I said, but maybe build on it. What do you do with the heightened self-awareness? I think you follow Gandhi's iconic path and you learn to become the change. How is change created? Change is created one human at a time. And the human we each can most influence is ourselves. And I just think that realization that I'm powerful, you are powerful, every human is innately powerful, is a game changer.
My Uncle Phil was a musician, self-taught, and performed at some of the best places in Boston. But at a certain point, he went to get a day job and became an appliance store manager. He'd never even worked in an appliance store before, but he opened the at the time it was the Want ads, went to the A's, was like, I could do that. I'll be an appliance store manager. And it turns out he was amazing. And I think the reason why had never seen a manager do that before.